If I was told I had died and been sent to hell, that would truly be more believable than the nightmare I'd awoken in. The world I was now a resident of bore no resemblance to the place where my growth, knowledge, and experience originated from. Yet, to everyone else, nothing had changed. I'm still the same Fuminori Sakisaka they have known. However, I can't say the same. I cannot live like this. A soothing melody has found its way through my ear canals. This is it. Inside the depths of this abyss, a light glimmered at the crevice's entrance. That light comes ever so closer, close enough to embrace it. The reason to continue living. It's so beautiful. The Song of Saya. A 2000 Lovecraft-inspired horror visual novel developed by Nitro Plus and written by Gen Urobuchi. Following Fuminori Sakisaka, a medical student who unfortunately was involved in a tragic car accident. With both parents passed, Fuminori was left greatly injured and comatose. Awakening in a hospital bed, the world he found himself in was not the world he had come to know. The walls that were supposed to be a clean, gleaming white were battered in what seemed like entrails, flesh, and gore. Even the people he has come to love have been reduced to a blob of unrecognizable horrors. Before he decided to make his escape from this terror, he met her, seeing nothing but incomprehensible amalgamations. The appearance of a young girl appeared before him. A normal person, a lamp that lit up this dark corridor of his world. Experiencing normalcy for the first time in months, he decided to continue on with life and make the best of what he has, alongside Saya. Being set face to face with this disturbing reality, Fuminori attempts to carry out his ordinary life, but by indulging in escapism of that reality through his relationship with Saya, a rift between his new and old life leads to the collapse of both worlds. Through the constant 4 to 6 hours of text, you see Fuminori's dive into despair. While everything around him is falling apart, he sees that as just a false reality, just some dream he will awake from. The progression of how the story is told is engrossing right from the start, seeing how this man has come to loosely accept his new life, and how drastically this incident has changed his psyche. With each passing string of text, the more and more addicted I became. With the lack of proper chapter stops and quick transitions between scenes, I was sucked in so deep my perception of time had been completely warped. What had felt like 30 minutes was, in reality, multiple hours. Despite coursing me along with each press of a key, there were certain elements that I couldn't help but become de-immersed or facepalm in the direction taken. Some of the plot's progressive moments rely on typical horror cliches, reducing the character's rationality to atomic levels, purely for the sake of progression. Character shifts not only apply to these typical scenarios, but to gratuitous acts of immorality. While most of the actions taken make sense in context, that reasoning may take a leap to something else. The story has many erotic scenes and, to its credit, a few are implemented into the narrative seamlessly. Even still, a majority of them come out of left field, being needless and distracting, at times tipping the scales into rather disturbing territory that could have easily been worked around. But shortly after, it's almost as if that distraction never existed to begin with, putting me right back into the mind of not only Fuminori, but his close friends who over months have seen him drift further and further away from the person they have known him as, taking on numerous perspectives, switching between this once tight-knit group, as one side pushes away, while another pulls towards. For a relatively short read, its succinct storytelling ensnares you in a complex web of emotion. No matter how disturbing, brutal, or bleak everything seems, that entertainment or factor of meaning doesn't let you run away. No matter what has hooked you, if you find the silver lining of this narrative's cruelty, it has accomplished its mission, weaving its way into the main theme of how one's basic perception can drastically affect one's own bias. This notion is not only embedded atop the mind of Fuminori, but is also cleverly implemented into the story's multiple endings. True, good, bad, or any other terms used to typically sum up an ending is instead clouded in ambiguity. Who the reader is rooting for and what they think is right is ultimately how those ending labels are applied. Your own outlook, your own perception, is everything. Though bits of it are sprinkled throughout the flow of the story, the characters, particularly the main lead's relationships, is the glue that puts everything together. The main focus displays the relationship between Fuminori and Saya, and the concerned strife of his friend group as a result of his agnosia. Deep down, he's a person with a good heart, someone with ambition and dreams. But by chance, all of that was taken from him. With the spot he finds himself in, he just wants to find a way to acclimate with this bizarre scenario. Gradually, his indulgence for his desires becomes a fuel for his descent into insanity. He begins to let his own perception cloud over reality, pushing people away. The people that were once his friends are nothing more than the monster he perceives them to be. While knowing the friend and amalgamation of flesh are one and the same, he subconsciously separates the two. Just like his friends lost him as he internally becomes a different person, he has lost them as he can't sever their person from the repugnant appearance. Just the sight of them fills him with disgust, so why should he care? Why should he try to accept the grotesque? After all, he has Saya, the one fragment of the world he knew, waiting for him. While falling into the pits of despair, he may take a path he won't be able to forgive or agree with, yet he remains someone who can receive empathy. His friend group, Koji Tono, Omi Takahata, and Yo Tsukuba, have taken notice of this behavioral metamorphosis, taking it into their own hands to pry open the box they believe he is locked inside. With each pushing an investigation into his life, bringing more resentment onto themselves. Through this gives the time to briefly explore each branch of the relationship. However, the attention given to the three is not equal. Although particular care was given to Koji Tono, someone truly sickened at the recent behavior of his friend, who only wants to get back the peaceful times they had before, walking into a sliver of that hell left behind by Fuminori. For its short length, the enticing journey of its prominent characters is the novel's main appeal. However, any side character gets left to the wayside with not much depth to them. All the cast members have potential to be relatable and fleshed out. The foundation is there, but most of them are severely held back by the lack of time to properly develop them, with some of the characters' sole purpose being to push the story forward. But undoubtedly, it is the tragedy that happened to them that drafts the game's two main themes, showing no matter how difficult life becomes, you always need to find the silver lining to make your life worth living. However, becoming too reliant on that silver lining and becoming immersed in whatever it is makes any time outside that bubble all the more difficult, to the point where, if popped, will conjure unforeseen consequences. Using that to then open up the audience's eye to ask us, what do we truly perceive as human? Going to explain how a simple change in looks is all it takes to ridicule the world around us, in spite of the beauty that may be hidden under the exterior. The beauty, or the unsightly, is all in the eye of the beholder. Just like its theme, the subjecting gaze of the eye is all it takes to determine the quality of the art. The dull color palette that drapes the characters, accompanied by the grainy filter coating the backgrounds, is apt for the tone, accenting the chronic dread present. The tension dwelling within the horror-centered moments gives a sense of claustrophobia, making the current predicament all the more unnerving. With just a character on a simplistic, often gradient background is all it needs to enforce its unsettling atmosphere, for its more graphic, molded world, detailing this flesh-gore-made environment. The base follows the standard with the drawn character and backgrounds, but splattered about is the 3D renderings of entrail-like mounds. At a single glance it's fitting, but taking a closer inspection at some of these environments, there are some spots that may look a bit out of place. The characters themselves have a rough, sketch-like appearance, in a style that is recognizable while not being too standoutish, though there are a few sprites that look slightly off. To contrast the common aesthetic, the CGs are attributed with a beautiful polished look in both background and character design. While being standard, what really serves to accentuate the disturbing present is the ominous melodies sung throughout. Alongside the beautifully crafted writing, the accompanying tracks amplify the effectiveness of the mood set. In times of dismay, thunderous high-pitched chords strike deep, causing instantaneous anxiety. The chilling, at times ear-grating strums gives discomfort without the need for any images or text. Or in downtime, the somber, soft beats allow for all stress and tension to ease. Every single track played within this 4 to 6 hours can solely be used to set the atmosphere alone. The emotion the story tries to draw out of you is done solely by the chords of this studio. There isn't an overbearing amount of tracks, with their usage just right to not feel overplayed while becoming memorable. Overall, Saya No Uta is a thrilling horror piece that immerses you into the mind of its main cast, but oftentimes becomes too reliant on certain elements. With that, I give it a 7.44 out of 10. With its alluring themes of perception, brought to fruition by an enticing conflict that arises between the main cast, and the thrill that arises from this strife alongside the fast pacing will keep you glued to the screen. Although clouding these bright points are at times gratuitous sexual content, random behavioral shifts with convenient irrational thoughts, and the lack of development or attention given to any character not a part of the main three. And as more of a warning, the content found within this visual novel can become extremely uncomfortable due to the ever-present gore and an abundance of questionable content. But if you can make it past that, it's a great way to quickly pass the hours. Through all of its faults, it remains an engrossing piece with surprisingly meaningful messages behind it. At least, that's how I perceive it to be. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Later.